And joining me right now is Mike Davis. He is the founder and president of Unsilenced Majority. And Mike, it's good to be with you. Thanks so much for joining us. And I'm glad that you started this because I feel like there's this common thought of people who want to push back against this, but there's some real fear that people have as well. And how do they speak up and how can they advocate for their beliefs and represent those and push back against this in society without themselves being canceled? And it's like they need really kind of a place, a headspace to gather in, for the lack of a better way to put it. Tell me about Unsilenced Majority and really what your aim is.
Thank you for having me on, Dana. So we started the Unsilenced Majority last Monday, and we've already seen an overwhelming number of people who have wanted to get involved at unsilencedmajority.org. And what we're trying to do is organize everyday Americans, conservatives, independents, even right-thinking Democrats who are tired of cancel culture, who are tired of fear of speaking out, of being able to speak their minds, who are fear these woke mobs. And so what we want to do is organize a resistance to this. We want to be able to say, look, if you're going to organize boycotts on the left, we're going to counter boycott. We're going to give you a dose of your own medicine with the goal of ending cancel culture. We want to cancel culture.
I like that. Canceling cancel culture, because it's just gone too far. I mean, now, you can't even have a nuanced conversation or ask basic questions because people want to assume the absolute worst motive about somebody doing something and, as a result, go after them. Now, you're focusing on a number of different areas because it's not just, it's free expression. It's in the workplace. It's on campus as well, in education. And that really seems to be where one of the big fights are occurring, is the wokery and cancel culture and education. Talk to me about this and what you guys have experienced.
Yeah, so Ian Pryor is one of our senior counsel, and he's our spokesperson. He's been leading the fight out in Loudoun County, Virginia, against critical race theory, against equity. It's Marxism. It's Marxist-driven racism, really. Yeah. And what they're trying to do is divide our country and conquer us. They're trying to divide us and pit us against each other along racial lines. We should all be for equality in this country, and these Marxist-driven groups want to push equity, which is just simply racism. And so we want to punch back against these woke mobs. We want to punch back against critical race theory. We want to punch back against cancel culture. People are being silenced. They're being deplatformed from social media. They're being kicked out of schools. They're being denied admission to schools. They're being fired from their jobs. They're being kicked out of the military because they're not falling in line with whatever the woke mob thinks is the appropriate party line that day. And we're tired of it, and we're going to fight back.
And I'm glad that you brought up, especially with the military and everything else with this. We're talking with Mike Davis, who is the founder of Unsilenced Majority, a new advocacy group that's pushing back against this wokery. And so much of this, too, is a language battle. It's like really the new newspeak, right? The revolution is complete when the language is perfect. And it's really a redesign of language, like anti-racism, for instance. You were talking about in Loudoun County, critical race theory, the battle there, and that battle, because there's been some amazing sound bites that have come out of that fight. The whole Ibram Kendi idea that there's no such thing as a non-racist individual, that even if you're denying that you're racist, well, that's evidence of racism. This is snake oil that is masquerading as academic thought and designed to shame people into certain behavioral patterns, all for the benefit of creating a Marxist utopia, which is, ironic because that word means nothing, in place of this republic. Ultimately, it's that language battle. How difficult is that? Because that's really ultimately what it comes down to countering, is trying to basically stop the rewriting of the English language and words' meanings.
So what we need to do as conservatives, what we need to do as Republicans, what we need to do as right-thinking independents and Democrats is say, you know what, we're tired of this. The problem is conservatives don't like to fight back. We don't like to boycott. We don't like to punch back. We did this with the Me Too fight. I was the chief counsel for nominations for the Senate Judiciary Committee for Chairman Chuck Grassley during the Kavanaugh fight, and the left tried to do this with Me Too. They tried to weaponize victims of sexual assault. It's tragic what they tried to do. They were using victims of sexual assault to attack conservatives, to attack Republicans, whether they were in corporate America, whether they were judicial nominees, whether they were members of Congress. They were using it to weaponize conservatives. when you give the left a dose of your own medicine, like we did with the Me Too fight, when we pointed out that Tara Reade brought much more specific and credible allegations of sexual assault against then Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Joe Biden, or we talk about the sexual assault allegations, the 7 sexual assault allegations against New York Governor Cuomo, you notice that the left stops talking about Me Too. Yeah. So that's what we need to do with cancel culture. That's what we need to do with these woke mobs. We need to turn their tactics against them so they stop doing this.
We're talking with Mike Davis of Unsilenced Majority. I'm glad that you brought that up because I feel like, because obviously cancel culture had been happening since before then, but that really, the Kavanaugh fight and that day, just to dovetail into what you were saying, that Brett Kavanaugh showed up and it was the day that everyone wondered, is he going to fight back? Is he going to punch back? I don't know if there was ever such, everybody held their breath nationally. You could feel it. Every conservative was watching the television screen, holding their breath, waiting to see what Kavanaugh was going to do. Is he going to come out and defend himself and punch back against this cancel culture like Clarence Thomas did back in the 80s? What is this going to be like? And when he did, that everybody of every age took notice of that. How much of what describe that? Do you think that that was a real game changer? Do you think that really, to me, I feel like conservatives still look back at that as a way of righteous indignation and pushing back against this wokery stuff?
Yeah, this is Marxism. And whether the strategy is Me Too, whether the strategy is these COVID stay home, science-less COVID stay home restrictions and stay home orders, whether it's this cancel culture, this is all Marxist strategy in their pursuit of power. That's what they're trying to do here. Yep. They're trying to cow us. They're trying to divide us. They're trying to claim power in this country, absolute power in this country, and we need to fight back.
And that's what this is. And we saw that with. Not to interrupt you really quick, but I love that because you focus on Marxism, and that's correct because it's Marxism or liberty. Marxism versus liberty. That's the fight. It's not even really Republican or Democrat anymore. You mentioned in Loudoun County. I mean, there are Democrats, moderate Democrats that people have formed coalitions with. I mean, what is it? Azra Normani, who runs Parents Defending Education. She's standing with Republicans and conservatives and evangelicals. I mean, that's ultimately what this comes down to. Right?
Yeah, I mean, we saw this with Me Too. There is the left wanted a presumption of guilt on sexual assault allegations against conservatives, against Republicans. You're guilty even when you prove your innocence, like Kavanaugh did. Mm-hmm. And it's just we have to say enough. We need to take off the gloves. We need to put on the brass knuckles. We need to punch them back. We need to break their glass jaws. They are trying to destroy America as we know it. They're trying to turn it into a Marxist utopia. You see this with Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. Black Lives Matter, the leaders of Black Lives Matter say that they are trained Marxists. Yep. They idolize Mao, the dictator responsible for killing 45 million Asians. The New York leader of Black Lives Matter says that political violence helps them achieve their political ends. That's the FBI's definition of domestic terrorism. But because Black Lives Matter is this sacred cow in America, people don't want to fight them. They're scared to fight Black Lives Matter. We need to stop this. We need to stop. As we are a tolerant country. We believe in equality in this country. We strive for equality in this country, and we should not continue to let the Marxist left use these racial tactics to divide us and destroy us.
Exactly, and for these Marxists to use things like moral failings and false accusations of bigotry and hold it over the heads of good people as some sort of emotional blackmail for not falling in lockstep with Marxist thinking is unconscionable. Tell folks, because I know a lot of people watching, and we're talking with Mike Davis, who's the founder of Unsilenced Majority, which you can find unsilencedmajority.org and see it on our lower third too. So how can people get involved with you and use this to help this battle in their areas?
And I appreciate that, Dana. So they can go to our website, sign up for our email. We're going to organize an army of grassroots activists who we can deploy when these matters come up, whether it's the Space Force commander who was relieved of his duty for reporting out Marxism in the military, Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Lohmeyer, whether it's Dr. Scott Atlas, the Stanford medical doctor, the Stanford medical professor who was deplatformed by big tech because he was sounded the alarm that stay-home orders were a cure worse than the disease when people were dying from suicide, depression, cancer because they weren't going and getting their cancer screenings. We need to be able to fight back against these Marxist woke mobs. The biggest proponents, the biggest enablers, the biggest enforcers of this are big media and big tech. Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Twitter. We need to fight back against these woke mobs, these woke mobs, and they're taking over every institution in America, big media, big tech, academia, even now the military. We have to fight back against this to save our country.
Just unbelievable how far it's spread, and it spreads because people don't stand up, and they're counting on people being afraid to not speak out and stop it. Mike Davis, Unsilenced Majority. Appreciate what you're all doing. We're gonna continue watching, and I hope people go check it out and sign up. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Of course.